Well, I just brought up a tweet I shared from Rollo Tomasi. Maybe we could put it up on the screen, but he brought up what I had mentioned about 98% of abortions are elective. And then I like what he says here about abortion is the ultimate expression of hypergamy. It's a fail-safe against a woman's bad reproductive choices. And the thing is, people would say that's misogynistic or whatever, but for me, it makes a lot of sense. It's women want to have sex, they want to have fun, but at the same time, they don't want to carry the child of a guy who won't stick around. Now, I'm of the view, like him, that women control who has access to sex. I mean,
Mhm.
men given the choice would have a lot more sex if they could, but again, women are more selective, so they can only have sex with who they can. It's that whole thing of women have sex with who they want to, men have sex with who they can. So what it is, if these women are going around sleeping around and they're upset that, oh, I can't abort my fetus, it's because they're having sex with guys that they know wouldn't be good fathers. But then that gets into that whole, I think he coined the expression alpha fucks beta bucks, the whole thing of, oh, I want the good genes of the strong, tough guy being passed on, but I also want a good provider. Ideal situation is you get both, but it's hard to find both in one person. That's why you'll see commonly a lot of single mothers will reproduce with the bad boy, but then some time passes, then they want like a nice guy who's going to provide for them. That's why. And he also shared a statistic. I didn't know about this recently, but about how it's actually wealthier women that are having more abortions. And I thought
Yeah,
that was
we'll get into
interesting.
that here.
I thought that was interesting just because, like, we're always told, oh, this will hurt poor people the most, but it's like this is the usual socialist nonsense of they always say we care about poor people, we care about poor people, but it's always the people at the top that are making the decisions and that really want things to favor them. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a deflectionary tactic that one of the several deflectionary tactics that, again, as I see, is being made from some point where they're trying to not look at the X for what the X actually is. And that's the thing. Like, I don't really find people who define it and say, yes, it's ending life and still are as supportive of it. Even those shout the abortion type of people, I don't think those people would sit down and say, yes, we can say this is a life at this point. That's why you see, as you said, going people as far as saying, like, that woman looked like she was like 7, 8 months along and she was like not a life yet. I saw some people yelling like, it's not a life until they breathe. I'm like, what? I don't think most people actually believe that, even if you
No.
haven't actually gotten to the point of defining it in your mind, trying to define it in your mind, like I did. I think very few people would actually believe that. But
Yeah.
and again, just another deflectionary tactic, talking about the socialists. One of the typical things that you'll have people in the United States of America say, one of the things they'll say is like about certain things that happen in America, oh, the people in those other countries are laughing at us. And first of all, I'm like, why do you care if other people are laughing at you? Like, if you're confident, if you have people in your life, again, that's why I wonder, do these people have friends? Do these people have actual neighborhoods? Do they have a community around it that they care about? Like, if you really like a sport, if you really like an activity, if you really like anything, and you have your group in it, if some people from outside make fun of you doing that, you're like, I don't care. I have my people here. We're doing this
Yeah.
together. So why do you care so much about what your parents think? But then a lot of Americans also wanted to turn Europe into Europe, like that whole Revolutionary War thing. It didn't happen because the majority of Americans were happy being Americans. A lot of them were like, hey, let's just have this like Europe light to this side. Let's have Europe like, isn't it the East Coast? Let's have Europe of the Americas and things like that. So another thing they say is, oh, we need to have healthcare like Europe. So
Yeah.
one thing that I haven't really heard too many people say, and because it's just not true, is we need to have abortion laws like they are in Europe. Because there's this chart here that I don't know where I first saw this chart. I saw it on Twitter, but I'll have it on the screen. This chart has showing where in the European Union. Now, this was before the United States, before Roe versus Wade happened, and it was showing Western Europe, and I think it was like 0 weeks on request abortion prohibited. Have you seen this image? I don't know. I can
Yeah,
send it to you.
I shared it myself the other day.
Okay. What's that
Because
black country? Is that Iceland?
well,
Like what is it? I don't know the location of that
wait,
one.
let me bring it up on the map
Okay.
because
Because there's one country that has 0 weeks. I think that is the same country. And that might be two countries. Yeah, it's two countries that have 0 weeks on request abortion prohibited. Then the rest of the countries, and then one country has legal limit within 21 to 30 weeks. And then two countries have legal limit between 1 to 10 weeks. And then every other country is at legal limit between 11 to 10 weeks. And this
Oh,
is
yeah.
not a situation where just or Americans don't really know about other countries. I don't think Americans should care that much about other countries. America itself is massive enough, like a continent. It's enough to me, I think, to just kind of know about neighboring states or something like that. That's enough because there's so much to know about. Europeans, tiny little countries, tiny little continents. Whatever Europeans, Americans only need to know about Americans. But in this case, even Europeans don't know about Americans because you had people like French president saying virtue signaling about what's happening in America, but his country itself had a legal limit at 12 weeks. It just, I think it was 12 weeks. It just moved to 14 weeks in
Yeah.
the last year. So he's saying that, but I think most Americans didn't really understand that most of Europe had more limitations, had more protections in for the pre-birth life than most countries, most of the states in the United States of America pre-Roe versus Wade. Although that has changed now that now that now that Roe versus Wade has changed. So what do you think was happening there? Why do you think in Europe they have this general take? And where do you think the divorce is? Because first of all, I don't really think most of the people who say we need to be like Europe actually believe that. Because if they actually believe that, they would actually research the reason why Europe has the socialist policies. They would realize the tax rate. They'd also realize the homogeneity of the places with similar kind of genetics, similar kind of smaller population. So you don't really need to service people in like the middle of the boondocks and like in cities where they have entirely different kind of environments and things like this. They don't understand like the costs in the United States of America also tie in all the research and development with all those massive big pharma things into like research and development health costs going towards the developing like the COVID vaccines were mostly done in the United States of America. And that's tacked in on this amount of spending. So those things come in. So, but what do you think that divorce is? Why do you think Europe was like this, but America was the way it was with the legal limits between 21 and 30 weeks in most places, but in Europe it was 11 and 20 weeks. What do you think was the change?
So to address your point too, the countries that are grayed out here are Poland and Finland. Those are the ones that it's because I remember there was a whole thing in the news about Poland and women here were complaining about that, which I thought was ridiculous. I don't know if it's that whole if it's virtue signaling, if it's a whole sisterhood uber alles thing, we have to defend other women or what it is. But like you said yourself, I mean, the vast majority of the countries here, the countries that are whited out are either ex or partially European Union. So that's the UK, Norway, Switzerland, and what is that? Iceland. But then in the first three countries, the early legal limit 11 to 20 weeks, like you say. In Iceland, it's 21 to 30 weeks. The only other country besides Iceland, actually, interestingly, is the Netherlands, Kyra's country. They're 21 to 30 weeks as well. And then Portugal, it looks like Portugal, and there's two other countries here. I think that's Slovenia, and there's one other country. Those are 1 to 10 weeks. But like you say, I mean, they're all 11 to 20 weeks. So I don't know. I don't know if it's a legacy because they're more. I'm not going to say the Europeans are more religious than we are, but I guess we pride ourselves on separation of church and state, even though that's not officially in the law, but that's what people believe, blah, blah, blah. Whereas, like, I know in Britain, like, the church and the state are basically entwined, even though they've become a more atheist country. So I don't know if it's a legacy of that. I don't know what the view on Islam regarding abortion is, but I wondered with migrants coming in and becoming a more substantial part of the population, I'm wondering if that's playing a role. I'm not sure, actually. I mean, I haven't followed as much about abortion in Europe, but I'd be curious now that you mention it.
Thank you for listening. This has been a clip from an actual longer recording that I'll try to leave a link to on the screen or somewhere around here where you're listening to this.
Pendants. 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 Pendants.
Peasants.
Okay. Okay.